How's it going, everybody? Hope everyone is having a good day, for one. I'd like to thank everyone on the channel for the new subscribers, the existing subscribers. You guys have been awesome lately. I keep saying that, but it's honestly true. I mean, without you guys continuing to enjoy the content, none of this stuff would, this channel would not continue to grow. A couple things that I want to touch on today are some study techniques that I utilize right now for studying service provider. And a lot of the stuff that we're studying has to do with the technologies that I'm not as familiar with. So, for one, you can see on your screen that I've got OSPF pulled up, and this is for the ASR 9000 series routers on iOS XR. So this is the 5.2 code, which is going to be the code that I go through and learn for the CCA service provider blueprint. And just going through and looking at some of the configuration differences between OSPF and ISIS and stuff like that. And one of the things that I've noted as I was going through and learning, the different technologies and the different caveats is the different command structures. And one thing that uh, it's one thing to really understand how the technology works and how it's implemented, things like that. That's vitally important, obviously. But what's also really important is your ability to understand how to get the implementation working. So a lot of times I use Notepad and I'll like throw the configuration in there and why you would use it. To configure said technology, obviously the syntax is right there for you. You type in the area, done. I mean, pretty straightforward stuff. And that works out for the most part. The problem with that being though is it's I find myself often spending a lot of time scrolling. If I've got you know several thousand lines built into a notepad doc, I spend lots and lots of time scrolling and looking for something specific. So a while back, and I haven't used it until just recently. Again, um, is a program called FreeMind, and FreeMind, I'll go ahead and pull it up for you. Looks something like this. So FreeMind is a mind mapping tool. And so what I do with this is I don't do anything like, I'm sure I'm not using the program to its fullest capabilities, but for me it's a way for me to um, basically take a technology and break it up into each one of its subtopics and break in those subtopics into more subtopics and you know go from there. So I started this one last night, just as a demonstration to a friend of mine. And I said, because he's starting data center, and so what he's doing is he's already got a CCNA and data center, and it's mostly theory. Do you understand what VPC is, OTV, things like that? And for me, it's SP though. So, and I'm going CCNP SP. So there's a lot of things that I need to do, and I'm trying to get through the material as quickly as possible because I am looking forward to teaching the material. Now, I can pretty much deliver CCNP service provider route because there's a route exam that's basically the same thing as your routing and switching route, except for they pull out EIGRP, they throw in ISIS, and they add in routing policy language or RPL on iOS XR. So those are just a few things that I'm learning that I have to know in order to deliver the content for uh, service provider for route. Now there's 4 exams, unlike the 3 that you had to take for route switch. So what I'm doing is I'm going through the material, and the reason why I'm doing it the way that I'm doing it is because as I'm hitting a lot of the stuff I already know for iOS, obviously I've got my number. That stuff is second nature to me. The XR platform is not so much. So what I'm doing is I'm going through iOS XR. I'm also finding the synonymous commands for iOS and putting them into FreeMind. Now let me give you a little demonstration of how FreeMind works. I've got this little thing here, and they're very, very light files once you save them. FreeMind is a free application for you to download, and it gives you the ability to sprawl out. And so like I have enabling basic OSPF. Obviously, if I'm going to do like authentication, I'm going to do stubs, and I'm going to go through the blueprint and look through the configuration guides and say, okay, what else do I need to throw in there? I'll do one for BGP, I'll do one for ISIS. And I'm fortunate for me that I'm doing it the way I'm doing it because I have to learn iOS XR syntax. Now, can I get iOS XR running for the most part? Yeah, but it's good for quick memory recall, and it helps me map it quicker. So what I'll do here, I'll go ahead and zoom in on enabling OSPF. So click on, actually, let me go ahead and, well, I'll just expand this out. I'll show you how you would, go through and set this up. So you have this little bubble here. This bubble expands out. You click on this guy, and what it does is it expands into more stuff. So like for instance, I can come in here and let's click in here and delete that guy. So like for instance, I can for iOS. So you want to know how to implement something via iOS. You would simply click on here, and then you have the interface configuration and you have the global process. Okay, cool. So I can expand on this, and then I have what I'm doing is I have the top line is the configuration, and I say IP OSPF process number area number done. Now this enables OSPF on all IPs. So if you have more than one IP address on that interface, that's going to enable for that. But just IPv4, right? So I know that. So what you can do is it says enables OSPF on all IPs. Secondary IPs can be disabled. Okay, how would you do that? And you would simply come in here, IP OSPF process number area number secondary is none. Okay, so that's getting the interface configuration done. Okay, great. So now you go in there, you test it out. You know how it works. I'm not going to throw the show command in there. I could, but I think I might as we go along now that I think about it. Now for the global process, and then you can close these guys up. You can, not sure what that's for. Dragging changes, node location. Oh, okay. You click on that, and then you're back to the interface configuration. You click on global process. Okay, how do I enable it globally? Router OSPF process number, network in this. Now, here's the thing. One of the things that I would recommend you do, and actually I started doing it here on iOS XR, is when you're here, hit the insert key. That's going to add what they call a child node. What that does is you can come in here and when you're starting to branch out, what you can do is type in router OSPF process number. What you would do then is you would type in, okay, what does this command do? And then you could have a bullet line. So I come in here and type in enables OSPF process. To me and you, it's very, very obvious, right? Now I can click up on that. So it enables the OSPF process. I can click back on here, another child node. I could say one up interface required. Now why is that? Yeah, that's spelled right. One up interface configured. Now, why does that matter? Well, that is required to get the router ID situated, right? So I can come in here and I can say this, and I can take this guy now. Since he's highlighted in gray, required for OSPF router ID. Okay, so I can go in here and do that, or I can do it underneath here if I wanted to. I can come in here and move that to there. I could, you could stub them out, and then you can come in here and do stuff like that. Well, I don't like the way that sits. That's kind of goofy. Actually, what I would probably do is I would cut this, and then I would come under here and insert, or actually, let's see, paste. There we go. Required for, I could do it underneath the global process. Actually, to be honest with you, I'm thinking about this. This would make more sense under here. Now, the reason I'm thinking that is, okay, one up interface required. So you'll know that when you enable the process, you need one up interface required for the OSPF router ID. Okay, pretty simple, straightforward. And then you'd come out here and you'd be able to say, okay, this, and then, okay, why would you want to do that? And you'd be able to expand it. So little notes to help remind you why you would want to do something. Now if we come back, we exit out of here, we exit out of here. Okay, great. Now we've done the iOS 6e, iOS. It really doesn't make a difference on iOS or iOS 6e. The reason being is iOS in iOS 6e is actually just a daemon. It's a process running on the router that is the same commands that you know in iOS. That's why if you ever look at an iOS 6e breakdown, you'll see where it labels the iOS 6e version. Then you'll see it also maps out the iOS version because they're analogous to each other. Like 3.11 is 15.4, and that's a way for you to bridge that out. So the reason why if you ever see me online, I'll like clarify. I won't argue. I'll explain why. There was a Facebook comment that I responded to. The guy goes, "Well, iOS and iOS 6 are not the same thing." And I'm like, actually, they are the same thing. It's the XE is the different architecture for iOS to sit on top of, where iOS itself is monolithic, where iOS XE is distributed. And you have multiple ESPs, multiple SIPs, and different other forwarding mechanisms in play that are supposed to help prevent, say for instance, a NAT bug from crashing the entire router. These different different things like that. So we take a look at it from this perspective where, okay, now we have iOS up and running. Now we want to get iOS XR running. So we say, okay, the enable the global process, so router OSPF process number, and then you would come in here and you expand this out, the area ID, and then the interface type number. Enables OSPF globally, process number is locally significant, process leaks require redistribution. Process leaking, sorry, let me go in here and, there we go, requires redistribution. So if you want to leak between process 1 and process 2, you need redistribution. And I'll probably take that same thing and, let's see, do I have it? Actually, it wouldn't be there, it'd be here. I don't have. I could just take this and let's do copy, and I'm going to click on this one and paste. Or should I do it? Yeah, that'll work. It doesn't make sense there. So you can do it that way, and then you can, as you can see, you can move them, pick and choose where you want stuff to be sitting, stuff like that. So now there's only one way to enable OSPF on iOS XR, and that's globally. So you literally would type in router OSPF process number, and this is for IPv4 OSPF version 2. The area number and the area information that you want it to sit at, and then the interface type and number. So gig 00000.10. So you'd enable it on that process or that interface, and then you would have to type in. Well, there's the commit option is going to be obvious no matter where you're at with XR. I mean, I could type that in here and type in issue commit, and then do something like that, and that'll be another, because this won't. One thing you could do here is actually let's actually delete that. We're gonna go. This is normally how I would do this. I would type in issue show config, and then issue commit, and then under here I would type in insert. I would say displays candidate config, and then here I would say applies candidate config. Okay, so this way here you'd be able to branch out and see what's actually going on and go from there. So it helps you understand what's going on. Actually, I could take these guys and I could say we're going to cut this one and apply it to here. And then move this one and cut it. Yeah, that makes more sense. Actually, no. The way that I had it makes more sense. See, you'll have to play with it a little bit. I mean, it's I guess it gets the job done. Oh no, wait, hold on. Let me undo that one. Yeah, that does make sense. Let's go paste, and then that works. Now you can move this down here. If you grab the beginning of this line, you can actually bring it down. I'm not sure, is it gonna let me do that? It probably won't let me do it because of what's up here. Now you can space them out. So if you want to do more, you can come in here and type in insert and grab it up here and do more with it and space them, move them around to try to like make it set up to where it makes sense for you. So and then go from there. So we can actually, to be honest with you, now that I'm thinking about this, I should put this over. Now I'm fighting with myself. How we want to do this? Actually, this guy here. Okay, yeah, it does make to me. But see, you might. I guess where the part would come into play, where does it make more sense? Does it make more sense to have it attached to interface type number, or does it make more sense to have it appended to this guy here, and then it's a child node of it? Or does it make more sense to have issue show config, and then below it says displays candidate config? Because if you didn't already know that, you could say, well, if I display candidate, if I do this, how does that display that? So you could be like, okay, well, let's cut it and then paste it. Oh. Actually, let me do this. And then cut this. Alright, well, suppose it doesn't make much of a difference. But see, now to me, that would throw me off. Issue commit displays it. Technically, because I would look at it from a top-down perspective, and where I'm coming from is with this. I actually had this sped up, or fed out here. It says required for the up interface technically is not required for the OSPF router ID on this guy. So theoretically speaking, it's actually incorrectly applied here, but it's personal preference, I guess, at the end of the day. So I guess it just depends on what your taste is. I'm gonna go here and paste it, because to me it makes more sense to have it, what is the command, what does it do, right below it. But so process leaking requires redistribution. So you have it being able to like branch out from one step to another. To me, it makes it easier to identify what's going on, and then go from there. So you can do that if you want. Now, I typically probably would not utilize this. If you're just learning the syntax, this right here would be to do that. I would. Now I know this stuff already, so I wouldn't actually. This to me would be a waste of time for that. So, and the reason I say that is because I commonly will issue show config just to make sure that everything I've done is correctly applied, and then do show commit or issue commit. So here, if I don't know it, I'll throw it in there. But right here, enables OSPF on all IPs. Secondaries can be disabled. So theoretically, this command and this command are associative to this one, not the interface. But yeah, it's all on how you want to interpret it. but that's just what I plan on doing. Now, it can be kind of confusing, and I know this. So, like for instance, I'm planning on doing one for routing policy language. I'm planning on doing one for route maps, prefix lists, and so that I can help, um, you know, iOS XR specifically. If I wasn't learning iOS XR, I probably wouldn't do this. But because I'm learning XR, to me it makes more sense to have it set up this way, and I can come in here and say, okay, well now that I've enabled, let's come in here and these are all going to be implementation commands. So I can come in here and click in this guy and type in, say, uh, choosing the designated router or changing the network type. And how would you go about doing that? Because then you're able to go in here and add things as you need to and take away as you need to. Now, a friend of mine is doing this because he's doing data center, and this really helps with order of operations because he knows what he needs to do after that. And go from there. But at the end of the day, it's up to you and how you want to actually utilize the operations. So that's pretty much where I think it should sit, but it's up to you and how you want to do it. So anyhow, that's just one of the things that I've been working on lately to help me catch up to the information that much faster. Now, a question was asked to me a while back, a couple weeks ago. Wouldn't it be easier to learn all the commands on iOS and then go back through and learn them on iOS XR? And that theoretically could work. Like for instance, if you're already like me, if you're already strong in iOS, you can just zoom through and do all the service provider specific stuff like the layer 2 VPN, inter AS VPN, um, all the stuff that is specific to SP on the CCA blueprint, go through that on iOS, and then just go back and map it to XR. Well, yeah, that probably could work and would speed the process up a little bit for me, but at the end of the day, the goal here is not to just plow through, because I already work for a service provider, so I'm already on iOS XR a lot. So what I'm planning on doing is just going back through and saying, okay, what are the relevant iOS and iOS XR commands? And this way here I can at least go through and test them out as I'm going through. And because then this way here, if I run into a hiccup, it's probably, or if I run into any configuration issues or things don't work out quite right, then it's a matter of me going out and saying, all right, well, the only reason it's not working is because I'm going out and not testing it before I implement it. And then I can implement a fault and explain to you guys why it's not working the way that it is. And that only comes from me testing it out. And honestly, you wouldn't know this until I tell you this, but a lot of times I'm a little weird in the way that I do my prep. I don't just sit behind the computer and do labs. I have I guess you can call it a condition where when I have to hear myself talk in order for me to pick it up that much faster. So can I go in there and get it configured and then take notes on it? Sure, that works. A lot of times I will take a topic, for instance, and I will learn it. Like for instance, when I started learning, one of the topics I'm zeroing in on is ISIS authentication, because there's multiple ways of doing it. You have hello authentication, then you have LSP authentication, you have domain level authentication, area level authentication. There's a lot of it there. And I'm just trying to say, okay, well, how do I get just hello authentication to work? How do I get just LSP authentication to work? How do I get them both to work? And then go through that and break it down step by step. And then I'll be able to thoroughly understand it, come time for the test. And one of the things that I decided to do was go through and I'm planning on writing a workbook, and the workbook is going to be written in Word, and then I'm going to map it over to PDF. And I'm not sure if INE is going to want that. I haven't pitched it to them yet. I'm going to see what they want to do. And this way here, I'll be able to say, okay, if you're going to do iOS and iOS XR, then this is what you're going to need to do. And because there are workbooks, but they're CCIE. And to me, there are things in because like for instance, let me go ahead and go over to the workbook real quick. Let me navigate to that really quick here. Log in as me, workbooks, service provider, v4, and then I'll click on, IGP. I'll expand that guy out. And so like for OSPF, they have v2 network types, path selection, BFD authentication. Then they have v3 network types, the same thing, encryption and authentication. For ISIS, they have network types, path selection, BFD, authentication, multi-level, route leaking, single topology, multi-topology. That works. To me, for CCNP, there needs to be a different level of detail to that, to where we need to go through and look at the database. We need to go look. Now these are workbooks, so the workbooks are going to be a different style setup than, like for instance, I'm going to make the workbook that I'm going to be planning on writing and this is going to be as I'm going through just to verify that I'm learning it the way that it should be. And the workbook is going to have a different I don't know, theme, style, whatever, where in a video, if I record a video, I'm going to record it and I'm going to break down things to you guys so you'll be able to see what they're doing. Wireshark and debugs are a big portion of what I do, so I'll export PCAP files from CSRs, and I'll show you the PCAP. So we'll look at the Wireshark captures and see exactly what's going on in the network. That's great. It works out quite well. The key factor here to understand, though, is workbooks are designed to test your knowledge. Videos are designed to build your knowledge. So if I'm going to be doing the videos, and I've already got the labs mapped out. It's just a matter of actually putting them into play and putting them into Word and creating the what do you call it? Creating the setups. Because there's multiple factors that go into play. You have to create the table of contents, and you have to create the actual workbook itself. Then you got to do the solutions. So you got the solution, the verification to go along with it. So I'm planning on doing, if I'm going to do enabling OSPF, okay, enable OSPF here, here, and here, and it's going to be step by step by step by step, right? Like to me, like any workbook should be, it should be per technology, and then there should be a lab that's associated with that. And that's why most of you, if you follow along with any of the videos or any of this, whenever I teach a new technology or I'm doing something, I always try to do it so that it'll be a functioning lab once it's done. So case in point, let me pull up the CCNP topology right here. This should be it. Yes, this is it right here. So this is the CCNP topology, and for a service route, this is for route and advanced route. And what I'm doing here, and let me go ahead and modify this down here so it's easier to read. What I'm doing here is I am going through and bring this just down just a touch. Oh, I goofed up. 1 second, guys. So what I'm planning on doing is this top half here, these 8 routers right here, these guys will be running all OSPF. The bottom half down here, these guys right here, will all be running ISIS. They'll all be doing BGP, and eventually that'll pretty much wrap up route. This section over here will be dedicated for redistribution, and then we're going to have when we get into advanced route, we'll take a look at multicast and advanced BGP, things like that. The key factor here is that as we're going through the material, I like to build out my labs in a fashion where they're built out so that when you're going through the technologies, you're going through the workbook to learn the individual technology, like you would for CCIE. The CCIE workbooks are massively involved. I mean, there's just no comparison to how they are. I'm gonna ask INE if they want them, and then I'll send them what I've got if you want to download them as an independent workbook, or if they want to incorporate them into workbook um, their workbook offering that they do. It's up to them how they want to handle it. So you'll go through and do the individual technology workbook, where you'll go through and go and enable OSPF on iOS and iOS XR. And then you'll take it to the next step, you'll do authentication, and then the DR, the network types. So the idea here is, as I'm building this out, and actually let me go ahead and pull up that file folder here. Give me a second, guys. If it was anything other than YouTube, I probably wouldn't waste the time, but you guys are the reason why I do what I do. So we're going to go into CCNP. We're going to go into one second here. Route, labs. So here are the labs. Let me go ahead and pull this over real quick so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Here are the labs that I'm planning on doing. And let me go ahead and bring this down. So this is just OSPF. So there's actually nothing in these files. As I was going through and building it out, one of the things that I thought to myself was like, okay, how would I build out a workbook to test people on? Also, how would I build up my videos? How would I go about getting that stuff up? And so I thought to myself about that. I said, all right, we need to go through here. There's actually some stuff missing in here. I need to actually add it in and rename some things. So I'm probably going to put OSPF in its own folder, and ISIS, and then BGP, and then route redistribution, things like that. So like for instance, we have network and interface config, DR, BDR election, path selection and auto cost, authentication, virtual link and authentication, stub, not so stubby, internal and external summarization, network types, hello and timers, BFD, default routing. Okay, that covers the majority of OSPF for you. The thing that you guys need to understand so the factor here that needs to be understood is this is how the video layout will be, or very similar to this. That should be also the layout for the workbook. So, the workbook will break down to be the first page or two will be nothing but blueprint or table of contents. This then that'll be hyperlinked to the actual lab. So you'll go through and say, okay, enable this, and then there'll be another hyperlink below. You'll have your lab. Well, on this interface, do this, this, and this. That'll be your test for that particular technology. Then then below that, it'll be like click here for the solution and verification. Click on that. It takes you immediately hyperlinks you to another page, and then it has inside of that page, it's got the solution. Okay, you would type in this command here, this command there. The show command for the associated command is here and here. Here's the verification. Here is a debug output. Maybe here's a Wireshark picture. It's all going to be in Word, so I'll be able to implement that. And this way here, I can go through, and a lot of this stuff is a refresher for me because I'm going back through the material. But I think it's also valuable for those of you that are learning it for the first time. So I'm treating this like, service provider is my baby, and this is the one track that is going to be special to me, and I don't see anybody else doing service provider. There's nobody out there training on service provider. I'm looking at taking it to the next level. I've downloaded quite a few workbooks that people put out, on their own and stuff like that, and they're good. I'd say they're full of good content, but the design of the workbook to me is I don't like the design. I don't like to see a bunch of outputs and then, to me, I want to have a table of contents, the lab itself, and then follow it up on from the lab that you do. I want to have in that same area, you can click on the solution of verification. If you are where the table of contents would sit, you would see a section where it's just the labs, and another page it would just be just the solutions, and then for the hyperlink to the solution, and then again below that you'd have it broke out like that. So I hope that makes descriptive sense, but that's where I'm trying to go with it, so that it makes it more complete and stuff like that. So that's just a general flow of what I'm looking at doing, but that's just the idea I've got. So that's why I'm using FreeMind to map it out, and because this way here, the FreeMind helps me to put it into uh, helps me map it out, and then I could say, okay, well, I've got on iOS, I've got the the syntax for this. Okay, interface to global, do this. Why would you do that? In the lab itself, it's going to be just a few lines. Enable OSPF on this router doing this, and go from here. There'll be all the stuff that we're going to be doing will be available in Viral, and anything on XR 5.2, and I'll put what iOS images you need to have and whatnot, and you'll be able to do, like, if you're going to use it through INE, you'll be able to use rack rentals through INE. They're available now. Beyond that, I'm not going to provide rack rentals, but I will tell you, okay, if this is the topology, this is what you're going to want to do. But my workbooks won't be mapped to them. You'll have to have your own equipment and be able to. I'll set up a topology of what you should have going and go from there. But that's just what I'm planning on doing. And this way here, it can be that much more thorough, and go from there. So I'll get the route workbook started here probably today and get that guy going. It does take a long time to get working. So to me, I can bang out a bunch of videos pretty quick, because it's just a lot of the information is coming off the top of my head, and the workbooks won't be that much more difficult. I'm not going to go into, like, it's a CCNP workbook, so it's not going to be into minute detail like CCIE might be, where I'll take what I did in CCNP and I'll just rename them CCIE, because it'll just be that much more involved. So there'll be an OSPF workbook, ISIS workbook, BGP, MPLS. There'll be a inter-AS VPN. There'll be one for a layer 2 VPN. All that type of stuff. And then I'm basically, for CCIE, I can go to training and defense. Let me scroll this down real quick and go CCIE, and go CCIE service provider, and go to lab exam information, practice. Or I'm sorry, no. I'm going to go exam topics. So for instance, I can click on exam topics, and I can expand these guys out, and I can go. There's a lot of information here to know, and there's just no getting around CCIE. So what I'm planning on doing here is breaking these guys out for the workbook and writing my own workbook. And this way here, it'll be me going through the material and potentially helping you guys out. You never know. I'll pitch it to INE and see what they think, and go from there. Till next time, guys, take care. I appreciate everything. Have fun.